Hi, Mako.
Hey Julia, good to see you.
Good to
And
see you too.
I know, and it's been such a good journey from time we spent in Pasadena. I know we talked a little bit about that last time, but I continue to think that was so generative, and I was really grateful to see you in
Yeah,
person.
yeah. That was cool. It was a good thing.
Yeah.
And you've been so many places since then.
Yeah, I have to look at my calendar to list all the places, but we were traveling because of Beauty and Justice. After we left, Los Angeles, we were in Seattle area for a little bit, and got to see some great people there, and then we were just in Michigan, although it was really for this residency type experience, which was really extraordinary. I talk about culture care, and this is a residency that's ending the kind of the cycle, but will continue to be a place where they will invite, it's not a residency, but it's an invitation only kind of a multifaceted space that um, I would love to see it develop into generational model of cultivating artists in a specific way. So it was privileged to be there, and I was able to go to Cranbrook, which which is where you got your MFA, right? Is that
Yeah.
amazing place. And what I loved about Cranbrook is that it merges all other things that they're doing in that space. We saw summer camps, with um, local children, and we also saw, exhibiting Cranbrook graduates who is merging craft with art. And that's an area where I always thought, this distinction of something that is utility driven and whatever art is is like there needs to be more osmosis happening. These categories that we have set up. So it was great to see, and it was beautiful. So many important artists coming out of there. So
Yeah. Yeah. I admit that watching your photos from your time at the residency, I want to know more about the printmaking experience.
I would love for you to experience something there because, it was just such a beautiful setup. And what happened was the owner of this property um, had a vision for something for to benefit artists. He's a photographer himself, a world-class photographer. Um, and he just asked me, do you have any advice? How do I help cultivate next generations of artists? And I said, well, it's been really proven data that the best way to help artists is to create meaningful residencies with certain um, programming that not just host them, but create a sort of a portfolio or their work in tangible way that can be shown in museums and so forth. So and basically create a catalog for them out of their time, have um, think about their families, because if you are going on invited to a residency, it's not that you stop paying rent on your apartment in New York or Brooklyn, or elsewhere. So you have to account for that. You have to think about financially if you're going to really help artists that that portion has to be covered somehow if you're going away and their families, right? Like, what do you do if you're a single mom, and you're not going to leave your child to go do a residency? Some may, but I just think you have to think about that if you're going to be a host. So I kind of spelled out, my wish list. And he actually did all of that and more. Um, so many of the artists that were able to spend time there, they were able to have a exhibit in a local museum, had a catalog. It just, you know, the time spent there was paid for, so they not only had a stipend, to be able to basically make a living by being there without any expectation of their art being, in a transactional way. It was truly a gift for them, and there were composers who composed music there that were relatively unknown. Now is in mainstream. So there were all sorts of types of people, and it was just a beautiful space.
It's so cool. And I'm glad that you got to go and experience it
Yeah.
and work with print assistants and,
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
these new pieces.
I know it was really fantastic to the environment was so conducive, that I think anybody going, walking in there will feel like, wow, I can do something, I can make something, I can write a novel, I can, you know, um, and everything is like set up, and so I had a wonderful person help me. He's actually an illustrator who has done printmaking, has taught printmaking in the local college, and it was just wonderful to work with him. Just he and his partner came and just helped me. Um, as you know, as an artist, you start out having an idea and you have materials and you want to try something, you want to narrow it down, so that, if you have 3 days, you want to maximize that time, and, you're pouring all your imagination, your visual language into this. And, the challenge is like go from idea to execution, this huge gap that exists, and oftentimes so frustrating because you don't have this, you don't know how to do this. Well, in a residency like this, it should be that translation is at least easier. In my case, it was just perfect alignment. It was just I met him for the first time, and immediately we felt like there was, collaborative spirit there, and such a servant heart that he has. And it's just a delightful experience to be able to do that. So,
That's so cool. And you have new blues on the wall behind you.
yeah, we've been, I'm doing this commission below. You can see that, come about halfway done, but yeah, and what's great, Julia, is that, I think we talked about this, but even when I'm away, right? Even if I didn't have a residency, if I'm just, walking around, Seattle, I'm always painting in my head. And something about my work is always feeding into my imagination, even if I'm away. So this time, I was doing these monotypes at the residency, and I'm literally thinking about the painting behind me and thinking that, oh, impressions of gold and minerals. Um, so there are certain obviously limitations when you use a press to press it,
Mhm.
but there are also new ways of like ghost images, that is just so beautiful. Ghost images are images that after you do your first run with full ink, you have some ink left on the plate, so you run it again, and all of a sudden that, and in my case, I would run it like 5 times, almost like there's nothing left. But what minerals do is if you mix it right, it will retain certain features that only expose itself or comes alive at the last ghost image.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how that will work. It depends on the press. It depends on how you run it. Depends on the paper, certainly, and depends on how long you immerse the paper in the water and all those factors. But as we went along, we really discovered this magical reality of how minerals and water-based materials can work to create images. And then I'm coming back here and I'm thinking, well, is there anything that I picked up at the residency and what this experience taught me to this painting that I'm currently working on? And the answer is yes. I still fully don't have the idea formulated to be able to tell you, but I know there is something, and always, as you know, intuition comes first. Um, Many times we are doing things that we have no idea how to articulate, but somehow our hands know, somehow, the materials know, and we are surprised at how materials can teach us the direction of the image.
Mhm. Yeah. In some ways, it's an extension of culture care
Yeah, that's right.
in that reciprocal learning, in that awareness of all the different facets.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I think I don't know about your experience in art school, but typically art is taught as a way to execute something, right? To have this level of expertise. And so you're producing things um, in to meet that expectation. And of course, there's a lot of important things about that. But ultimately, to me, where I find the most freedom and even transcendence and sacredness is when the materials begin to speak um, into my soul, and somehow there's this transmutation, of what I'm doing, what I'm seeing, and that matches up somehow, overlaps with my own heart, my own experience, and the people around me. And so that seems to be, if that's the case, then the goal of the process of painting, goal of art, it's not about, production of something that is already expected or this transactional realm. The problem is when you are successful at anything, On every show, there's that one painting that everybody wants. And next show, the gallery is going to expect you to reproduce that one painting to, 10 other paintings, right? And I learned, I don't know about you, but I learned over the years to resist that temptation. Um, there's certainly enough um, motivation to do that for so that I can pay my rent, and feed my kids. But as much as I can, and plus, when I try to do that, it doesn't come out anything near you know, what I wanted. Anyway, so I'm very bad at this. So it's better to just reframe, be present, let the material, speak back, and discover something new every time. And the beauty of printmaking, as you know, is that when you pull that paper, right, it's always surprising. Something surprising is happening, and especially with monotypes. And so I find that to be really exhilarating.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And what's also really cool
Oh,
is
yeah.
the new edition
Yeah,
of
new
Culture
edition of
Care.
Culture Care. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to say about it?
Well, I asked Mark Laberton to write an afterword, and he wrote the foreword of the first edition. And he was like, why do you want me to write that afterwards? Maybe he doesn't want me to say this, but I was like, well, I need you to explain this to pastors, like why culture care is important. And I try to do it in a book, but I'm an artist. I'm not a pastor, right? And and the foreword is written by David Brooks, so he's certainly not a pastor. Um, And of course, this book is for everybody. It's not for just for the church, even though, I definitely use biblical language. So it might be seen as a Christian book, but it's really written for anybody. And I found this to be true, that culture care principles, especially generative principles, 3Gs, 5Gs that I write about, it can be applicable to anything, any business, any board meetings, any kind of whenever you have a setback, artists have a way of turning that into generative opportunities.
Mhm.
We do it instinctively. We don't even think about it because that's how we have been taught, especially in this culture in which we're always told not to do, not to be an artist. We always somebody saying no to our projects. We not only have no budget for what we do, we have minus. So we're used to starting with that, right? So we have no expectations, like um, other than the desire to create something. And so I realized that that principle is very helpful for anybody, not just the church. But then I also realized as I journeyed with culture care over the years, and as we have journeyed on the board of this nonprofit, I am Culture Care, that pastors desperately need this information too, um, in their preaching, in their vision to serve the local church, but also for missions, also for thinking about impossible situations that church finds ourselves in, and how upside down the kingdom is. Like it is not, in a sense, driven by utility and even purpose, because it's somewhat upside down to how we define success. Um, and so culture care really, I think, brings out this reality that artists know instinctively. And my hope is that this book helps all leaders, but especially pastors, to understand and care for the soil of the culture of their church, and also just globally thinking about missions. What are some of the missional opportunities that culture care can bring in? And artists who you know claim to be an atheist, to me, is just as valuable for missions. Maybe even more so in my mind, because they can tell me honestly
Hmm.
what the culture is doing. They might be angry at it, and they was they would never walk into a church because they think church is complicit in that problem. But I just feel like in their cynicism, right, they capture the truth more honestly. And so I love listening to artists. And of course, there's a lot of, you know, personal journey there, and um, challenges, obviously, as with anybody. But I just find that to be part of how we might probe deeper into what's happening in culture and not depend on, let's say, you know, news cycles um, to inform us of what is really happening.
Yeah, yeah. And I think Dr. Laberton's remarks in the afterward are even, he recognizes the hope of culture care even more than he did when he wrote the foreword. Like
I
years
know,
on,
I
it was
know.
so much more hope filled and so much more orienting in if you do a comparison of the two.
Oh, that's amazing, Julia. I think you're right. And I'm so glad I insisted that he write this, because I think, in a sense, both in negative, like what I thought culture wars would do, in the late 90s when we started to articulate these principles, um, is much worse than I thought. You know, it is devastating. It's more toxic than, I think actually anything that we know in Amer to put certainly in American culture, but all over the world, and the potential of culture care is more powerful than I even imagined.
Yeah.
Because I remember first when the first book came out, some reviewers said, well, this is a nice thought, artists saying, let's take care of culture, but it's not going to move the needle,
Mm.
right? Well, that may be right, but what is moving the needle is moving to the negative. So, as an antidote to that reality, let's gather our thoughts and ideas and creativity and imagination to really think about what if my book doesn't move the needle, that's fine. But what is going to move the needle? That's the discussion I want to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the second edition includes some of that, because I never expected the little chapter on business care will be, taken up by Swedish Economic Forum, that I will be invited to speak as an artist, first time at this event. And I never thought that for instance, a chapter on bees will produce so much fun conversation among people who are not artists,
Mm,
right? They're environmentalists, they're carers, right? They're people who line up in farmers markets and talk about tomatoes.
mhm,
But they connect with the principles of cultural care, perhaps more deeply than a lot of artists. Unfortunately, because we've been kind of conscripted to be in front lines of culture
mhm.
wars, that
Yeah.
we've forgotten our hearts long for that conversation,
Mm,
about tomatoes and kimchi and, and and I remember the fellows, right, when we were gathering in Pasadena, having so much fun having a meal together and talking about these things. That's as natural as you and I are doing right now. And somehow that feeds into our imagination in a powerful way that allows us to breathe a little bit deeper. And we are able to go back into the studios or our desks and be able to have a moment where we are not only re-energized but reoriented
mhm.
into something that is more hopeful. I think that word is right because we don't expect that from much from the world or even what we do intentionally to try to correct the ship, to try to fix the world. But sometimes a meal is, all we need at the time to begin that
Yeah.
reorientation.
And David Brooks talks about the importance of your uh, diverting the paradigm, just
Yes,
saying,
in a funny way.
come with me on this journey.
Yes.
You know, I'm not going to follow your script. I'm just going to talk about the bees and the tomatoes. But I
Yeah,
think
right.
that that is really important because it is presenting that model that you're talking about for the future that you hope for.
Without intending, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's so funny. It's forward, and he doesn't. I don't know. I've read his books, and there are funny parts of his books that are really entertaining. But this is like genuine kind of like backroom story. Like, and I'm very fortunate to call him my friend. And when he wrote this and I read it, I just thought it was the funniest thing. Like, he's kind of like he was worried about me because he thought that nobody would get what I'm saying because I don't do 3-point sermons. You know, when I try, it doesn't work out really well. You know. So, so he was in a funny way, I think, us affirming all of us, who have this meandering ways that, bees will meander between flowers. They don't go in a straight line, um, and waste time, right? That we're like wasting energy and time somehow. And somehow when we do that, we disrupt what is expected and
Yeah.
what you're supposed to do, what you're even trained to do.
Yeah.
And just being yourself, you end up, yes, disrupting something, but also charting a way for others, right? Who may also think non-linear way and
Yeah.
and they have all sorts of diversions, and disruptions and my conversation with Daniel Nayeri, which is a link, we have a link on that in our newsletter, um, was really funny because it was two people, creative people, remembering the past, after 9/11 at a bakery cafe, Robert De Niro's cafe, having these just conversations like this. Did it go anywhere? I don't know. But it surely ended up somewhere because, he's won all these awards since then, writing about trauma-filled, journey. And yet they're funny. They are full of joy and life, and unexpected ways of looking at life. And he captures the imagination of a young boy or a young girl, writing in the style, young adult fiction, so-called. But he's also, I think, helping us see the world as a child. And I'm beginning to wonder if that's not something alien to any of us, that we were once nonlinear.
Yeah.
And
It's the perpetual living in Kairos versus Chronos
yeah,
and
right.
all the implications that follow as a result.
Yeah. Because the timelessness of the moment being fully present actually expands time, literally expands time. And that's what we experience when we have these meals. Um, and we tap into something that art needs to capture,
Mhm.
but our world is kind of like will push us against that and force us to be linear, oddly enough. And so when David wrote that, and I read it, I was like, wow, this is really funny and even a little embarrassing, but isn't that what culture cares about, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
like, yeah, like we all do these things as artists. Like we have quirks and we have and yet, why not celebrate that?
Mhm.
That's like doesn't matter if you're in ground zero or in Taipei. You can have these conversations and get together. All it takes is a meal, or coffee, and we can being just get together for sake of wasting time together, and that may do more for the world, so
Mhm.
polarized and divisive, and determined to define humanity in a certain way or dismiss humanity in a certain way. All these algorithms that are, made to narrow our focus.
Mhm.
And what if artists started to just expand, everything we do, meander, border stalkers, going in twos and threes and just disrupting the flow.
Yeah. And that ties into what you say culture care is. It affirms the language of empathy, which is the fruit of love toward the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you just modeled the what if question,
Uh-huh.
which you have a whole chapter on. And it's just question
Yeah.
after question of what if.
Yeah.
And so I wonder for our listeners, what if can you live into today?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a powerful question. Two words, what if?
What if?
And just have coffee and talk about it, and say, what if this was true? And that will help us to map it out, and also be accountable, because month later, well, you ask that question, how's that going, right? Very simple, but it will have profound impact on, not only our lives and our art, but relationships, community, church, world, and so the seed of culture care can be spread everywhere by anybody, So that's what we hope, and we hope to hear from people here, and hopefully we can set up more ways for people to do that. So,
So Culture Care, second edition.
yay!
Yay. And is this the episode where we hear Clayton's music?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. Yes, 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 because my son, Clayton, comedian, composer, is as meanderer extraordinaire, has made music for us. And so you will hear his music. He's made more than one. So maybe multiple things you hear, but we certainly will use at least one for this broadcast. I want to thank him. I am so, um, yeah, wasn't expecting that. I'm so proud of him for being who he is and who he has become. And I just think, and this is a gift from him, and that is just beyond what anybody can, if this is something that has come out of his heart and his journey and his reality. And it's just been amazing to watch him in Brooklyn doing his thing, creating community, culture care community, really. And but I guess a fair warning is that, his comedy is very much comedy, raunchy, raw. So it's definitely rated R, but I cannot tell you how proud I am of say enough that is because it's hard. It's hard to be an artist today, and comedy is one of the hardest art forms out there. So thank
And he
you.
made some remarkable music for us.
He
And so
has,
thank you,
yes,
Clayton.
yes. Thank you, Clayton.
So good. Take good care, Mako.
Okay, Julia. We'll see you next time.